Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Growth Execution Podcast. We are here every week with a fabulous entrepreneur here to help you to launch, build, and grow your own business. I'm delighted to be joined this week by Ruth King, who is a profit and wealth shark. Isn't that right, Ruth?
That's right, yes.
Do you want to tell our listeners why that is your description, please?
Well, I have been working with small businesses since 1981, and I can smell things that are not going well in a business. And you know how sharks have this really, really good sense of smell, and they can smell blood in the water and everything else like that. Mine's not blood. Mine is profitability. Mine is smelling wealth. So that's how the title came about. And it's been really interesting. I mean, I used to have a really boring title like founder and CEO like everybody else does, but this starts asking questions. And I think part of what we have to do as entrepreneurs is make ourselves stand out and have people say, well, why do you have that title? And it's a great way to explain what I do.
Do you know what? I'm already thinking my business card is way too boring. I'm going to have to change. And is it the case then that, you know, that pretty much every business has that profitability potential? You know, are there ones where you just can't sniff out that profit and that one?
Well, it really depends upon the owner of the business. It depends upon whether they want to grow or not grow, or whether they want to be profitable or not profitable. There are some lifestyle businesses where the owners, quite frankly, could care less. Mm-hmm. But the really bad part about it is they only care about cash. Well, they can't have positive cash flow unless they're profitable. So, I mean, they got to care about it whether they want to or not.
Yeah, exactly right. That lifestyle is not going to sustain itself if there isn't any profitability in the business. And you know, obviously, you say you've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs over the years. What sort of things do you find, particularly with launch entrepreneurs, those at the very start of their journey? What do you find that they're making the most mistakes now?
Number one, they don't get enough customers, and you know, they start their businesses and they think, okay, I launched my business, I started my business, the world is going to come find me. Well, the world is not going to come find you. You have to go find the world. You've got to get testimonials from your customers and things from that perspective. So that's the marketing side. On the financial side, unless they get into trouble really, really fast, they don't pay attention to the financial side, P&Ls and balance sheets until they get in trouble, which is usually when they run out of cash or, you know, have problems paying their bills, or then they start paying attention. So in the beginning, they care more about getting customers and getting dollars in the door, whether they're profitable dollars or not. They really don't care until they get in trouble.
Got it. And how do they increase the profitable dollars? How do they get that laser-like, shark-like focus?
Yeah, shark-like focus. Well, it really and truly starts with how much profit per hour you want. You know, for every billable or every revenue-producing hour, how much do you want to actually come to the bottom line? It could be $10 an hour. It could be $10,000 an hour. Good luck at $10,000 an hour.
That's the dream.
Yeah, absolutely. But the pricing really comes from that. And as long as you're pricing your products profitably and pricing your services, you know, so that you make the net profit that you want, then you're in a situation where, you know, you build it backwards. So, you know, P&L normally starts with revenue, and you take out your cost of goods sold to give you gross profit, subtract out your overhead, and you get net profit. Well, I flip it. So what net profit do you want? What's the overhead associated with that net profit? That gives you your gross profit. You add your direct costs, and that's how much you should be selling for. So I flip it. And as long as they know what they want coming on the bottom line, then we can go backwards and make sure that they're pricing profitably. And that's the key.
I see. And a lot of that as well is about kind of trying to fast forward and trying to imagine where you're going to be as well, right? Do you find that having a sort of eye on that purpose and that drive is useful and helpful in driving profit?
Absolutely. You know, if you're starting a business, you're not starting it for a hobby. You know, it's really, if you don't care about profitability, you've got a hobby. You absolutely have a hobby. Now, if you want to have a hobby, terrific, go play.
Absolutely.
But every business that grows, every business that is sustainable earns a profit. And profit's not a bad word. Profit's not yuck. You have to have profit in order to be able to just sustain your businesses. And that's part one, you know, and the wealth part of the title actually comes because having profit is not enough. I mean, look at, you know, what happened with the pandemic. How many profitable companies went out of business? And my thing is, you also have to build wealth. Now, building wealth is in two pieces. Number one is obviously building up the pounds in your case, or the dollars in my case, or the euros, or whatever else it is, so that you can survive absolutely anything. My way of looking at how much cash you need, and if you're starting, you're probably going to use a dartboard and make a guess. But if you've been in business for a year or 2 years, you'll have your overhead kind of figured out. So take your overhead times 3 and your payroll times for 1 month times 6 and add them together. And that's probably how much cash you need for most people, for most businesses. Now, there are some who are what I call cowboys. I don't know what you call them in
yes,
the UK.
we call them the same.
But they are so loving risk. And so they love living on the edge. So they love making payroll by squeaking by every week. That's not me. All right. And I'm sure that's not most business owners, but they look at it as a game. And I don't do that. I'm a little less risky from that perspective. I like to have cash in the bank so that I can sleep well at night and know that if another pandemic happened, I can survive.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's almost like that kind of chicken, isn't it? Where it's like, right, what's going to go first? Am I going to run out of money, or am I going to be able to pay the bills, or whatever?
Yeah.
And you're right. And that puts stress on not just the business owner, but also the people that work with them and the business itself, right? The products start to suffer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of the sort of wealth side, and that's obviously something that's really, really interesting. And you mentioned the pandemic. How do you think people can prepare for whatever the next pandemic or the next big kind of moment in time is?
Well, it's all, cash is a piece of the wealth, and customer base is another piece of the wealth. So if, the restaurants who survived had databases of customers of 10, 20, 30, 40,000 customers who they were able to talk to, who were able to, give them opportunities to do things as takeout and whatever else it is. So my thing is not only build the cash, but build your customer base, and don't do it from a perspective, okay, this is my customer, terrific. All right, find out about that customer, email addresses, why they're buying from you, those types of things. And the other thing that I look at is something I call recurring revenue. And I'll give you several examples of that. We talked about the restaurant piece. It's like a birthday club or an anniversary club or something like that, where they really don't pay for it, but they allow you to market to them, send them a coupon for, buy, a dinner for your birthday and get your dinner free or something along those lines. There are other recurring revenue programs where people actually do pay for them. And if, let's assume some of the people listening are starting a plumbing business or a heating and air conditioning business or an electrical business or, landscape business or whatever else it is. And you can have maintenance programs for them so that they pay a certain amount a year or a certain amount a month or a certain amount a quarter, and you provide services as a result of that. There's also like the book of the month club or the cake of the month club or the tea of the month club. I mean, we can do recurring revenue at the wazoo. So, but that's another piece that's building the wealth, because it's your customer base. And yes, they'll fall off during a pandemic, but there'll still be enough of them who are loyal to you because you're loyal to them. If you give them, make sure that they're okay. Is there something that we can do for you? And, here's something that can help you through the next couple months or whatever. And the marketing is very different during a pandemic than it is normally. But it's your customer base. That's the real wealth, is, the people who buy from you regularly all the time, loyal. And that keeps you through another pandemic. I mean, cash is critical, obviously, but it's the customer base and the revenue that can keep coming in the door that will help you.
And the source is absolutely those customers that are committed and loyal. And I think you're absolutely right. What is clear from those that did thrive during the pandemic is that it's taking real appreciation of the circumstances of the customer and actually recognizing that this isn't business as usual. This is a moment in time where any sort of empathy and understanding is going to be given back, 10, 50, 1,000-fold.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, I don't know what it was in Europe and the UK, but if you look at the other recessions, and I know this was not a recession, but those companies who kept touch with their customer base during the hard times. And this was definitely a hard time.
Yeah.
It exploded out of the gate when it was gone and done and over, and people were back to quote unquote whatever the new normal is.
Yes.
And
You've got that over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So look, genuinely, thanks for those tips. And we'll ask you a little bit more about your business and how you help people directly. But I wonder if I could just ask you, maybe perhaps going back over your experience with your years in business, and what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Oh, that came from my dad. Oh my gosh. My dad said, when really tough times happen, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And that has been when all the crap happens, and excuse me for saying it that way, and the little voice in the back of my head keeps going, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
I will hear it in that voice from now on as well.
Yeah.
But it's so important, isn't it? Because, you always see this kind of almost like linear, of those successful businesses, and you think, how have they done that? But actually there's stumbles and falls along the way in pretty much every story.
Well, you talk about the quote unquote overnight success. Well, when you do the history, the overnight success took 10 years.
Exactly.
Or 5 years, which is totally because we have to make the mistakes.
Yeah.
We learn from the mistakes, and if we're smart, we learn from the mistakes of others, so we don't make those. But guess what? We can make our own.
Just add to the pile. It's brilliant.
Sure,
but exactly that. It gives you that additional, those additional bits of information that enable you to navigate just a little bit smarter. But yeah, then you'll hit your own head on something, but then it's bounced back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think age also gives you perspective, because I know over the years I have gone through many ups and downs, and now I look at them and go, okay, I survived worse than that. We can deal with this.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it in my 30s, but now that, I'm in my 60s, I can say that. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. I think it's what you're so hard on yourself when you're younger, aren't you? You think you should know everything, and you kind of just get to a stage where it's like, well, do you know what? If you didn't know that, that's okay.
Yeah.
And talking about that, what if you were to go back and talk to yourself at the kind of start of your career? What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
Oh my gosh. I wish I knew everything from the past 30 years when I was 29, And, I think, as we just talked about, the fact that, as you go through things, it will be okay. I used to get much more emotional when things happen. Now it's like the rational comes really, really, really fast. And I think when you're younger, what happens gets you very emotional, and it takes longer, and I would tell myself, chill out, we'll get through this, and I'll hit the rational when you can make a really good decision, because you can't when you're emotional. I'd hit the rational a whole lot faster when my older self telling my younger self that.
Yeah, and I think it's a kind of that concept of action and reaction, isn't it? If you can widen the space between your reaction to whatever the stimulus is,
then that absolutely
gives you that space to make a much better decision, and that can make all the difference.
Yep.
Brilliant. And is there anybody that you kind of look up to as a sort of inspiration?
It's funny because I look at there's people who are alive and people who are dead that I still get inspiration from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody once asked me, if you could have a dinner party, who would you have? Obviously, I'd have my dad, who's no longer with us, my husband, who's no longer with us. I would actually have Margaret Thatcher, believe it or not. Wow. I'd have Socrates, and I'd have Thomas Jefferson.
Wow, that would be some conversation.
Yeah, it would be a really cool. So I look up to all those people. My mentor I look up to, because he's phenomenal. This guy by the name of Peter Diamandis, and I don't know whether you know who he is. He did X Prize, all the X Prizes that are around. He's my mentor. And I have a couple other mentors who probably nobody would know, but that's who I look up to. If I need help, I go.
And just on that, it is something that I think a lot of people think about getting is a mentor. What do you think a mentor or more than one mentor has brought to you?
Well, I'm a mentor for my clients for all intents and purposes. So even though I'm a consultant, quote unquote, I'm their mentors. I help them achieve the goals that they want to achieve. And my mentors ask me really, 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 really hard questions to make me think. Are you sure that's what you're thinking about, and everything else like that. So, I make my clients think, they make me think. So it's really, okay, here's where you want to go. Here's what you say you want to do. Number one, why? Number two, have you thought about this? And we keep going that way. Yeah. So I look at mentors as harassment sometimes. Put up with no garbage. And really in a situation to cheer you on when you're doing the things that you say you're going to be doing and achieve the goals. That's what I look as a mentor for.
Love that. And what's next for you? What are you looking at for perhaps not this year, maybe 2022? What's on your agenda?
A lot of, as a result of my mentor, most of my programs, which went on like Zoom or something like that, or on my websites, are now being revised into virtual reality programs.
Wow.
And I think that's the way the world is going. During the pandemic, my daughter, who is a lighting and sound designer, project manager for movies, was sitting in her room complaining about having to do a budget. Now, she is totally opposite me. I am a numbers girl. She's not. She's the creative and everything else like that. She's grumbling about putting together a budget because she has to for this project she's working on. I said, Kate, I want to make financials fun. And she goes, you can't. Well, that's it. It lit it. And so all the virtual reality stuff is actually going to be with a duck.
Duck. Excellent. A duck. And sort of calculation. Excellent. Brilliant. I'm reading it already. This sounds brilliant.
Yeah, because I'm taking, back when I was a kid, we had lemonade stands. Well, I have a duck who owns Bathtub Inc. And we're doing everything that way, which makes it really fun rather than, okay, this is what a P&L is. This is what a balance sheet is. I can go to sleep during that too.
Superb. We're very much looking forward to seeing that. And Ruth, how can people get in touch with you? I'm sure there'll be many listening who want to.
They can go to ruthking.info, which is my website that has everything on it that I do. And that's probably the best place for them to get me. My contact information is there and everything else like that. The books that I've written are all there, and all the classes and everything along those lines. So it's ruthking.info.
We'll make sure that link is on all we put out as well. So Ruth, it's been great to have you on the Growth Execution Podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope I helped your audience.
Oh, you certainly did. That's really, really great. So anybody that wants to find out more about Ruth, do go to ruthking.info. That's all we've got time for, I'm afraid, on this week's Growth Execution Podcast. Thank you for listening in. We will be back next week with another great entrepreneur to help you launch, build, and grow your business. Until then, have a great growth week, and we'll see you next week.